Hi guys. So this is another simple case of updating inputs. So if you look at the app on the right, so there are three columns. So the column on the far left is how it looks when the app launches, initial point, right? So note that the initial value on the slider input is all zero, right? And then in the middle column, so the user moves them around, right? They all have different values now. And then when you click the reset button, it goes back to the initial value zero, right? So it's a simple case of resetting the values to the initial values, right? So if you look at the code on the left, there are three slider input functions, right? The initial values are all zero. And then there's this action button with the input ID of reset. And if you look at the server function, we have observe event, and then there's event, and event is reset, the action button, right? So the user clicks reset button, right? Then we have all these update slider input functions, all the values going back to zeros, right? Okay, so let's do it. So let's save this to section 1.1a. Are you sure you want to change the type of the file? No. So let's try this again. Oh, I deleted the file extension R. Okay, so I let's try this again. Please delete. All right, there you go. Okay, let's try this again. Save as. So 1.1. There you go, with an extension R, right? So let's refresh. Right, so yeah, it's in order. All right, okay, so let's select all, delete, shiny app, right? So we have three slider functions and then action button. All right, slider, input, and then input ID is X1, and then the label X1, initial value 0, and then give me min, right? So yeah, it thinks that 0 is min. So min is -10, max is positive 10. Max equals positive 10. All right, so I'm going to just copy this. Oh, Control Z is to undo, guys. Comma, three slider input, and then there's action button, and reset is the ID, and uppercase reset here, uppercase R, that's the label. And so slider input X2, X2, X3, X3. And then we need observe event and the event expression input reset. And then curly bracket, we want to update all these slider input functions. Okay, so update slider input. Now we need input ID. So input ID here is X1. So that's, there should be a link between update slider input and slider input, right? So and that is X1, input ID X1, and the value here will be 0. So the value should update to 0, right? So we can copy this. Now on the server side, we don't need a comma, right? So that should do it. Let's try now, right? So if we change all these and then click on reset, what just happened? Um, the reset button didn't work. Why is that? Session must be a shiny session object. Did you forget to pass session to update slider input? All right. So do we need argument name here? So tab. input ID, tab, input ID, tab, input ID. All right, let's try this again. Okay, let's close it first and then run app again. So let's try this time. There you go. So apparently of this slider input, this update functions, the first argument is the session. So when I provided x1 without being explicit, by putting input ID equals x1, it assumed x1 was a value provided for the session argument. Okay, so we just learned that we got to make it explicit, right? Input ID equals x1, input ID equals x2, input ID equals x3. There you go. Great job, guys. I'll see you in the next video.